Hi everyone, it's Brenda back again with another episode of Three Uniques. Today we've got Susan Heinrich. Hi Susan, how are you doing today?
Hello, Brenda. I'm great. How are you?
I'm fabulous. It's so great to have you on. So everyone knows Susan is a writer and a travel blogger, and she's got her own travel blog which is called Midlife Globetrotter.
That's
So
it.
yeah, so I'm excited to hear more. And then another thing too is that you're based out of Denver, Colorado.
That's right. I'm originally from Toronto, moved to Denver in 2010, and we had intended to stay only a couple of years, but it's so nice and sunny here. We got used to that, and so we'd stayed longer than we'd planned on.
Nice.
But Toronto is still home, and we go back every summer.
Okay, and I love Denver. Denver's great. I love the downtown core. It's always got such a great vibe. So talk to us about Midlife Globetrotter. Why did you start it? How did it get started? Like, what was kind of the inspiration behind it? What's it all about?
Absolutely. So I'm a writer, which I'll go more into as we continue the discussion. And I was kind of when when I reached my late 40s, I had kind of put my career on hold, and I was looking for something new to do. And in tandem with that, I was experiencing a lot of changes at midlife, just sort of feeling the desire to pull back and look at everything, re-examine my life, which a lot of us do at that stage. And I realized that I had a lot of creativity that I wasn't using, and I needed to find a project that I could channel that into. And so I started thinking about different ideas, and I liked the idea of launching a website for midlife women, because I thought I could use my writing to talk about some of my midlife experiences, and it actually dovetails with my love of travel. So it's a combination of content. It's for midlife women, and it's a combination of content related to midlife sort of health and happiness, embracing midlife, meets travel and adventure.
Nice.
Which the nice thing about starting your own website is it can just be exactly what you're all about, and those are the things that I'm sort of passionate about right now. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been really challenging because I built the website myself,
Uh-huh.
because I did and created it. But one of the cool things about that is learning. I've found that learning new things at midlife has been incredibly empowering. And I think I needed that. I needed to feel like I was capable of learning new things, creating new things, and, moving in a new direction if I wanted to. So
Yeah, I think that's so great. And I agree with you. Learning things at midlife is so much more accessible now too. I mean, when we go back to kind of like when we first started school, the only way to sort of like really formally learn anything was to go to school, like was to go to university or go to college. And always that seemed so daunting. Like, it was like high tuitions, things like that, or just the time, like you had to be like locked into a classroom. Now there's just so much, like how to build a website. You can just like watch 10 YouTube videos and learn, right? And how to do social media. So like you can actually, learning is just way more accessible. You can dive into things that you had no idea you had skills around.
absolutely, it is. It's amazing. I mean, I learned how to build my website based on a free online course. Actually, a woman who's from Toronto area was offering a free course. So yeah, I agree. It's really anything that you want to learn is accessible and available. So that's exciting.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Oh, so I'm excited to hear about your three uniques. Tell me
Yes.
about it. Please share them.
Well, I have to say this was a lot harder than I was expecting, Brenda.
Okay.
And I think part of it is because I'm at a stage of life where there are things that I have felt were part of my identity and at the same time that's been changing. So it's kind of like, I'm in the middle between what the things that I've felt have been really a big part of my life and things that I'm looking forward to. But anyway, I did it. I knew I had to come up with three. So my three are, I'm a writer,
Mhm.
I am a creator, and I am an advocate.
Nice. Awesome. I can't wait to hear them. Okay, so let's go into writer.
Okay, so writer. So I am a writer by profession. I went to journalism school and started my career as a newspaper reporter. So I did that for many years in Toronto. I worked for National Post newspaper, and I loved that. It was exciting and challenging. And I worked for the National Post for about 10 years. And then I also did some freelance writing, some travel writing. But as my kids got a little bit older, the daily newspaper writing job wasn't working so well for me anymore. So I moved off of that and onto freelance writing, which I did, sort of sporadically. But I really focused on being a mom. So writing took a back seat.
Mhm.
And then when I moved to Denver, I had to decide sort of what I was going to do. And one of my big questions was, do I still want to be a writer? Am I still a writer? And so I actually started writing. I was kind of fed up with journalism, or I had just kind of felt like I wasn't sure I wanted to return to journalism. Let's say I wasn't fed up with it. I mean, journalists are incredibly valuable. I wasn't sure I wanted to return to journalism.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a creative writing course and I fell back in love with writing.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a great creative writing school here in Denver called Lighthouse Writers Workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so I've returned to writing. So at this point in my life, regardless of what I'm writing, how much I'm writing, I know that I'm a writer and I always will be.
That's great.
And with Midlife Globetrotter, obviously I'm writing for that. So that's my latest writing project. I also have a novel that I've been working on for years that hopefully I'll finish one day.
I love the fact too that you selected a unique that is so a part of like your whole life. And even though your life has taken different journeys, different paths, like you've come back to it, you know, and you've modified it, you've adapted it to make it fit your lifestyle now and like what's important to you.
Absolutely.
But not to like have given up on it, which I think is great.
Right. And it's funny because there were some years in my life when I was doing that. Writing really was not a big part of my life, that I felt like I really couldn't even call myself a writer anymore.
Right.
And I had to, when I moved to Denver and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I had to grapple with that. Am I still a writer?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not writing, so I'm not a writer. It's been an interesting journey, but I realize that however I'm writing, it is a part of me and I do love it. And have returned to it in a bigger way now, which is actually really exciting in this new format of the website.
Well, and again, I talk to lots of people about their uniques and at different stages of life too. And I think, maybe at one point you were defining I'm a writer as a job. And now
right.
It's like, it's
I was employed as a journalist. Right.
Right. And now it's more about like who you are as a person versus a job. Like it could be a job, but for you, it's more about who you are as a person.
Absolutely. It's so true. It really is who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then your second one.
Okay. So my second one is, I wasn't sure whether to say I'm a creator or I'm creative. I know because I believe we're all creative, right? And we express it in different ways.
Right.
I think the way that it is a unique for me is I really feel compelled to create things. And I feel that sort of sense of, I feel a lot of joy from creating things. And so there's a lot of different ways that I create things. One of them is photography, which I'm really enjoying more and more as I spend more time on it. So that's one of my current creative outlets. I mentioned that I created the website, and I think it was fun for me because I was able to use a program that is, you didn't need to know how to code. And so it was a lot just about the graphic design element. Mm-hmm. And the more that I've been sort of dabbling with that for the website and some other things, I just love it. It's one of those things, I don't know what you call them, but when you get into flow state and you just completely lose track of time.
Yeah.
There's a website called canva.com with graphic design. You may have used it. That's accessible for anybody. So Canva for me is like my, black hole. I can launch Canva and be on there for, how is it 4 hours later? So I have to watch it. So photography, writing obviously is sort of goes along with that. I feel like I'm creating something when I'm writing. The graphic design, the photography, and the cool thing about that goes back to what you were saying about the internet. I mean, the more that I get into it, the more I realize, wow, there are so many things I could create. There are so many different ways I could channel this passion, whether just for enjoyment for myself in hobbies, like creating photo books, or also from a career perspective, because although I've launched this website, I'm also on a journey of figuring out how much of my time I want to devote to different projects that I have going on in my life, and which of them are for monetizing and which of them are sort of for my own pleasure. Right. And so, so definitely creating is becoming a bigger and bigger part of my life, and I love it.
I love too how, especially with your blog, like you've created this because of, out of your own personal interest and your own discovery, but you feel like, in service to other people. right? Other women, other men that are going through midlife transitions, thinking about what they do next. It's like you're sharing from your own experience, but it's really in service to other people too.
Absolutely. And I feel that's very true about anything that we create. Ideally, we share it with people, right? I mean,
Yeah.
whether it's a poem or a blog post or a photograph. Of course, some things are for ourselves, but art, I think, is meant to be shared. And so when there are things that we create that can be shared, it's wonderful. But absolutely, yes, the website, my photography, all of those things I share as much as I can. And I enjoy that. I enjoy sharing them.
That's great. And then your
Mhm.
third unique, you're is an advocate, I think.
Yeah, advocate.
Yeah.
So this one, it's funny. This one just came to me this morning. Because I said I love travel, I am passionate about travel and I write about travel. That was kind of the obvious one for me, but it felt a little bit more like something that I do, that I love, than who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided rather than travel, I would go with advocate. And this is something that I am trying to devote more of my time and energy to now that I have it as my kids grow up. So I've supported nonprofits that educate girls for a long time, gender equality. And I've always believed in that because there's a lot of, because every girl has a right to an education, but also there's a lot of research that shows that educating girls is actually the best measure to address the best investment for addressing global poverty.
Yes.
Because when girls are educated, they have children later, then they make sure their own children are educated, and there's a really positive rippling effect from all of that.
But contribute also to the economy.
Absolutely. And there's some new research actually that shows that educating girls is an important way to address climate change as well.
Yes.
So that is really interesting. So this is something I am hugely passionate about. And I've done some volunteer work in this area, some writing, and sort of, dabbled and financially supported, but it's something I would like to devote more time and energy to. And yeah, it's something that I find myself thinking about a lot, and just learning, engaging. I'm not a professional working in this area right now, but it's something that I'd like to support in whatever way I can, and support beyond financially, which is what I'm doing now. So I'd like to become more involved in that. It's just something that I really believe in, and and I feel like what really matters to me right now that I'm doing. I mean, love sharing what I'm doing with women. I love traveling, and actually traveling and advocacy go together too. We can become, and it's one of the reasons and one of the areas I'm working on building content on the website is how can our travel make a positive impact on the world? And there's a lot of different ways, but every dollar that we spend when we're traveling can support someone. There's a lot of women-owned businesses, for example, that we can support. And so I'm hoping to build a database on my website of those kinds of things, so that when a woman is looking at traveling, she can look at, oh, maybe I want to visit this cafe where they're retraining women who are at risk or whatever. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how the ways that I'm living my life right now the ways I can be an advocate as much as possible in my everyday life. And hopefully maybe take on, something part-time, whether it's volunteer or not, but I'd like to continue to evolve, learn, and contribute in that area. So
I love that. So advice for people, you said it earlier when you were coming up with your three uniques that it was a challenge. So what advice would you give to somebody about discovering their three uniques, especially when they might be in the same situation as you, like midlife, like thinking about, what they want to do next? I'm sure you come across people that follow your blog that, provide comments or even share questions to you. What advice would you give, and how would you share that with them right now?
Oh gosh, that is such a good question. I think that we sabotage ourselves when we feel something like an interest or a spark of something come up, and we tell ourselves, oh no, that's not for me, for whatever reason, right? Because for whatever reason you tell yourself, like, I'd love to start painting, but that's not for me. I mean, I'm not a painter. Who am I? So I think we really need to be super mindful of the voices that are talking us out of things that we feel ourselves being pulled toward,
Right.
whatever that is. And so, because a lot of this is, for me, it's a journey, and I wouldn't have known how much I was telling my son, I had no idea I would have enjoyed making a website. Like, I'm not a very technical person. I thought I would hate that.
Yeah.
It is not until I decided I was going to do it and try it that I realized I loved it. And so a lot of this is giving ourselves like the permission and the opportunity to try new things without, and yeah. And so I think listening to that little voice that's telling you, wow, it would be so cool to, whatever it is, engage in it, go for it, embrace it. This is the time, I really feel, for anyone. Well, I'm talking midlife women now, it's a great opportunity as we can turn our time and attention more to ourselves and our own dreams and desires. But yeah, I would say that I think everyone, also the other thing that's important to remember is that we are all we are obviously, we are all unique, and telling yourself that you're not X because you're not the same as someone else. Like, I love that you've done this, because reminding every single person that, you know, no matter what things you might be telling yourself, you are unique. I mean, you just are, right? And so just being open to whatever that looks like, and not, goes back to what we were saying about me thinking I'm not a writer anymore, right? So just being really open to any of these things, and whatever you think you are. I mean, and you can embrace it to whatever extent that you want. So I think, and not editing ourselves. I've sort of given you a rambling answer, but
no, it's good. I think the other piece too is like you said, like lean into it, because chances are you keep going back to it. Like, even if we use you as an example with the writing, right? Like or the creative space, like you're going to go back to those creative outlets. It may look a little different than when it was like 20 years ago or 10 years ago. But I think like lean into that, like be, you know, introspective, look inward, like really pull out the things that you love doing, and how can you actually design a life around that? And, you know, that's where I like the whole premise from Three Uniques came in, is like there's 7.5 billion people on this planet, like, you know, and then I bring in my business lens to it. It's like you really only need like maybe 50 to 100 customers, like type of thing, a year, depending on sort of like what your price, like what you're selling, what your pricing is. You know, obviously if it's like a lower commodity item or something like that, you need more, but, you know, depending on sort of where you're positioning your business, it's like you really need kind of like 50 to 100 customers a year. There's 7.5 billion people on the planet. How long do I want to be working for? You know, it's like, you know, just, okay, so that's maybe like, I need 1,000 people I need to connect with out of 7.5 billion. Okay, let's get going. And there's going to be somebody that needs what you've got, right? There's going to be something that needs like your writing, your view on, you know, globetrotting, midlife, your view on advocacy, and, you know, and that just creates momentum, chain reactions, you know, and potentially a business that you can now do that's like based off of your purpose, who you are, what you're all about, versus maybe a career choice that you made like 20, 30 years ago, because that was just kind of what your parents or your school teachers told you to do.
Right. And that brings up a great point. I think really important not to try and define it, right? Like, not to try and limit it by some definition. Like, well, I could see that I might be able to slot myself into this.
Yes. Like trying to find that perfect job title, or an already done job title. Like make up your own job title.
Exactly. Make up your own job title. That's exactly it. I think that would be my advice as well, is it's okay when you're figuring this out to have no idea how exactly this equals a new career or a new job. But the important thing is to start to define your uniques, as you've laid out so beautifully, and then start taking steps forward with something, right? Whatever it is. Like you were saying, share it on social media, creating something, finding some people who are already doing some similar things to learn from. It's just start moving forward way before you even know exactly what it's going to be, I think. I mean, for me, that's how I'm approaching it. And so far it seems to be working well. I'm having fun anyway.
Amazing. And then I've got a question, not to throw you off, but I've been asking a few people this over the last few interviews. What is your favorite failure?
Oh gosh. That is a really good one. You know what? I would say my favorite failure is I started looking for a traditional job a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
Um, as my kids were getting older, and I was thinking I wanted to return to a traditional workforce. So get a job, you know, where I actually had to go in every day as opposed to being a freelancer.
Right.
Um, and I was just not having any luck. I interviewed for a few things, and so I was putting out resumes. I was talking to people. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, so I was kind of, you know, and of course it can take months and months and months. And I did give up on it pretty easily, but I just realized, you know what, I'm not even sure I want to be doing this, and so that forced me to pivot and take a new journey, which is how I ended up starting Midlife Globetrotter,
Nice.
taking classes myself, and just going down a different path. And so I wouldn't be on this path if I had gotten one of those jobs.
Awesome. I
I
love it.
wouldn't be, yeah. So,
Yeah, and I package it as your favorite failure because we have such like failure is such a trigger word for a lot of people,
right.
even for myself. And so I put favorite failure because it's like, you know what, like we just gotta sometimes like laugh these things off, like make it more accessible, more comfortable. That you know, failure is inevitable. We're human.
Absolutely.
Being human is
Absolutely.
like is part of like the failure and the success.
Oh my gosh. And if you're, yeah, if you're failing, it means you're trying things, right? You're going for it.
You're living at least.
Totally. I mean, you can't, nothing ventured, nothing gained. If you're trying and you're failing, that's awesome. And you just carry on. So yeah, I agree. That's a good frame. I like failure being framed that way.
Susan, it's been great having you on Three Uniques and sharing them with us. I really appreciate you taking the time to, and also give us like a backdrop into you, your writing, your creativity, and your advocacy. So thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you, Brenda. This has been really fun. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And so everyone listening in, like I said to Susan earlier in the interview, there's 7.5 billion people on this planet. Somebody needs what you've got. So get out there and share your Three Uniques. Take care, everyone. Bye, Susan.